So if you're living and working in Canada and you're self-employed, you have self-employment income, how does it work with collecting GST if you have business income from multiple sources? So for example, what if you have a business as a photographer and also a business as a cleaner, and both of them are sole proprietorships? How does it work for charging GST? Do you need to sign up for two different accounts? Do you just have to charge it for the one business or both? Or does it depend on whether or not you're required based on your revenue threshold for small suppliers? So the way this generally works is that the Canada Revenue Agency looks at this on a per entity basis. So a business entity either being a human entity or a corporate entity. And of course, in this video, I'm only talking about business income. I'm not talking about employment income. GST is not charged on employment income in any way. So one of the first things to be aware of is determine if you actually need to register for GST. And in most cases, you don't need to if you are what's considered a small supplier. And I'm going to make another video on what a small supplier is. But basically, that's when you're generating less than $30,000 in taxable income from business revenue within 4 consecutive quarters or less. And so a quarter being a 3-month period, and they go by calendar quarters. So that's either the 3 months starting in January, in April, in July, or October. And now those 4 quarters don't have to fall within 1 calendar year. They just have to fall consecutively. So if you've generated more than that $30,000 in taxable business revenue, then typically you are required to register for GST, start charging it on sales, collecting it, and remitting it to the government. Now, there are a few exceptions to that, so it's a really good idea to do a little bit of research and check if you are one of those exceptions, and I will leave a link to that website in the video description below. So just to keep this simple, let's say you're a sole proprietor, you have not incorporated your business or businesses, and again, you're doing photography as one of your businesses, and that's generating business income for you, and then you do cleaning as well. So let's say, for example, you started the photography business first and you surpassed that threshold. You're no longer a small supplier, you're registered for GST, and therefore you're charging it to your clients on sales for photography. Now, what happens with your cleaning business? Do you have to start charging it right away? Or do you have to create a new account? Or can you wait until you reach $30,000 in taxable income and grow out of being a small supplier with the cleaning business? Well, the way it works is that the Canada Revenue Agency looks at you as a sole proprietor, and even if you have multiple sources of income, they're looking at all those multiple sources of income tied to the one entity. And so that small supplier threshold is based on all your income earning activity, not just from one business. So if that's the case, that you have the photography business as a sole proprietor and you've signed up for GST and you're collecting it, and then you start the cleaning business, what you have to do is actually start charging the GST right away on revenue or sales in the cleaning business, because you, the human entity, are no longer a small supplier and you're already a GST registrant. Now, of course, this changes a little bit if you incorporate your business or you are part of a formal partnership, because if you incorporate, now you have a separate legal entity. So maybe you start your photography business as a corporation and then your cleaning business as a sole proprietorship. Then you're not combining those two income sources, because those income sources are going to different entities. So just generally speaking, the way it works is it's based on the business income from a single entity, and it's all clumped together. And now if you're in that first example where you're a sole proprietorship and you have 2 businesses, 2 forms of business income, one has already surpassed that threshold and therefore you have to start charging it on the other business, what you can do is you can kind of create like a secondary GST account. It's still tied to you, the human entity, and it's still the same GST number, but what it is you change the last number at the end of the number. So rather than it being your federal business number followed by RT0001, it's your federal business number followed by RT and then 0002. And so if you're wanting to report your GST separately for those 2 different businesses, even though they're both sole proprietorship businesses tied to you with one GST number, you can actually file them separately by creating that secondary GST number or GST account. And in order to do that, the best way to do it is just to contact the Canada Revenue Agency and just explain to them that you're a sole proprietor with multiple businesses and you want a secondary account or secondary number for GST filing, just to keep the 2 things separate. Because maybe you want to keep the photography financials and reporting separate from the cleaning financials and reporting. And you can do that with GST. But when it comes to your federal income tax filings, that's all going to go on your personal taxes as a sole proprietor, but you can fill out 2 different T2125 forms if you'd like to. And now for a corporation, let's say you set up one corporation and you're doing the same thing. Like maybe you have one segment of the business that's photography and then another segment of the business that's video editing. It works the same way because it's all about that entity. So if you reach that threshold doing the photography stuff and then you add in the video editing into that business, then you'll need to start charging GST right away on the video editing. It's not per service or per like segment of the business. It's just based on that total earning amount from the entity or within the entity. So I know this is a confusing topic, but I'm hoping that I made some sense of it. If so, please click like and feel free to check out my YouTube channel here where I currently have about 275 videos that cover business management and business startup topics. And again, I will leave a link to the Canada Revenue Agency website with GST information in the video description below.